In the last video, I told most of you guys are training the wrong muscles and in the wrong proportions. So today, I'm going to show you exactly what that means. You want to kind of think of your training like a skill tree, okay? In a video game, you got limited points, time, energy, recovery, you know, all that. So you have to spend them wisely. So let's rank them, starting from the bottom. This is how I'm going to break it down. We're going to do a tier list within a tier list. We're going to have bottom sort of ranking muscles that don't really contribute to the V-taper aesthetic, and then ones that do. Okay, so starting off, number one, calves, abductors, wrist flexors, and we'll say there's no lower back, but I would put lower back here as well. It does help with the V a little bit because it tapers the bottom half of your waist, but it's not really building that Dorito shape overall. You can kind of see with this guy here, like, yeah, it does play a part here, but it's not building the mass, as you can kind of see. All right, so let's break down the logic here. You know, you want to train these for health, functionality, and to not fall apart like by the age of, I don't know, 25. But if you're spending serious energy here, you know, trying to build an aesthetic, you are allocating your points in the worst way possible. Okay, the mid and lower back specifically, you want to train these for posture and injury prevention, but nobody is looking at your lower back and thinking, wow, that guy looks good, right? Okay, so your calves and your abductors and your wrist flexors, again, not really doing anything for that Dorito shape, so these go here. All right, so next we have the what we call the fine on the back burner. Okay, these ones are okay. They're not terrible, but not the most useful for building that V-taper. Okay, so we got biceps. I know, shocking, right? Brachialis. And what else? Front delt I would probably put here. And I'll also do these, hamstrings and quads and glutes. Okay, so let's break this down. Okay, so front delt specifically, this one's probably going to be the most controversial, and I'll tell you why. The thing is, everything you're doing in the gym in terms of pressing is basically going to be training your front delt. So if you're doing, you know, bench press, shoulder press, incline press, you know, your front delts are already getting hit, so you don't need to add more work on top of that. And yet I see a lot of guys in the gym will spam front raises, you know, on top of everything else they're doing, and wonder why their shoulders, you know, don't look wider and they don't look as 3D. And it's because they're not training their side or even their rear delt enough, because that's really what's going to give you that 3D look. Yeah, mainly your lateral delt is going to be what's building that aesthetic shape here, and then that adds the width from the front and the back. So spamming any sort of like front raises is just like, what's the point of that? I don't know. Biceps and your brachialis, I know everyone loves these, but here's the thing. These are probably the lowest ROI muscles on this tier list, just because they don't actually build anything for that V-taper. You know, they're only really visible when your arm is flexed, so you got to train them, but you shouldn't be obsessing over them like a lot of guys do. And then another thing, the quads and the hamstrings and the glutes, you know, you want to train these for balance and health and all that, but from a V-taper standpoint, they're not moving the needle on how you look when your shirt's off. So this is also irrelevant kind of for the V-taper physique here. Let's go to chest specifically. Is very good, okay? Very, very nice. But here's the thing. An overdeveloped chest with no lats will make you just look like a fridge, okay? So you want to train it consistently, but don't let it eat into your points. Your upper chest specifically sits slightly higher on this category just because compared to your mid chest, you know, that upper shelf of your chest will give you a more full and complete look from the side. And also, if you're wearing low cut shirts, let's say like a V-neck, you know, that fullness in your upper chest is really gonna shine. And not only that, but it's also going to make your neck more noticeable and more aesthetic. Okay, so as you can see here, obviously these are anime characters, right? So it's not super realistic. However, the upper chest, as you can see here, is really what builds this fullness. Okay, so if you have like a low cut shirt like this, that upper chest is going to pop out and be much more noticeable. And you can see here, same with Baki, right? He has the same thing going on, and that's because of his upper chest. So anytime you're training the upper chest, you're going to be really developing this section here, which is a huge aesthetic muscle. When you have low cutting shirts or just shirts in general, this is really going to pop out. Okay, so what's next? So by the way, I'm not putting these in any particular order. I'm just kind of going through these and kind of seeing which ones should end up where. So don't worry about this if you disagree with how I'm putting these here. All right, so next, let's do this. Okay, so obliques. Now, here's the most important thing that I want you guys to remember, okay? I need you to listen carefully here for a moment. The goal with your obliques should be to tone and define and not to build mass on this area, okay? okay? Heavy weighted oblique work will give you a blocky as fuck waist, okay? Which is going to destroy the V-taper if you're trying to build it. So light consistent core work like planks, you know, hanging leg raises, L-sits, that's it, okay? I don't want to see any of you guys doing crazy ab exercises that are going to give you a big blocky core, because imagine if you add mass here, you're just going to have like a very bloated looking stomach, okay? It's not going to be very aesthetic. You want to think about toning this rather than spamming heavy weights and building a lot of mass here, okay? So next we're going to do is erectors, okay? This is probably one of the most slept on muscles for aesthetics on this entire list. Your erectors will control your posture, and good posture makes you instantly look taller and broader, okay? And obviously more confident. Guys will spend a lot of time trying to build, you know, a better physique when they could just fix their posture, right? But this is also going to play into overall aesthetic from the front and the back. If you're slouched over, your V-taper isn't going to look as impressive versus if you have good posture, right? And then some things you can do is, you know, deadlifts, Romanian deadlifts, back extensions. You better not skip these, okay? And then it's also going to add thickness to your upper back, which is going to be huge for, you know, your back profile, if that makes sense. You know, when people are looking at you from behind, it's going to add thickness. It's not necessarily going to make you wider, but overall it's going to be very good for the aesthetic. And then also finally, I'm going to add triceps here just because this one might surprise a lot of people, but you know, triceps are the most important part of your arm. You know, they're about 2/3 of your upper arm. So if you want your arms to look good in a fitted shirt, triceps are a must, okay? But overall, it doesn't really change anything too much for the V-taper, but it is huge to train these, okay? You got to be training your triceps. All right, moving on, that has to get bigger category, okay? Number one we're gonna do is probably upper back, okay? Your traps and your rhomboids are gonna add that thickness and detail, and that separates a developed physique from a very flat looking one. When you see a guy from behind and his back looks three-dimensional, that's mainly because of the upper back. So how do you develop it? You know, you're gonna add rows, face pulls, reverse flies, all that, okay? And then next we got abs, okay? Your visible abs are gonna be a massive part of the aesthetic here, but here's the thing, you already have the abs, you know, everyone does, you just can't see them yet. That's mainly the issue for most guys, and this comes down to your body fat percentage, and I can do a full video on that in the future if you want, but that's all I'm gonna say for right now. And hold on, I'm gonna actually make a last minute change because I just realized something. I would probably put the glutes either here and balanced or has to get bigger. Okay, so why did I move the glutes here? But just hear me out for a second. Glutes are probably one of the most underrated muscles for the male aesthetic, and here's why. Because they fill out your clothes properly, right? They contribute to your overall physique and proportions, and women actually notice them whether you want to admit that or not. If you look into studies, I think the top muscle other than biceps is actually glutes. Women want you to have ass, which I know sounds crazy, but it makes sense if you think about it. You know, you can probably guess why, right? But the thing is, why I moved it is I would probably put it maybe more here just because this is good for a side profile. If you look at anyone with a side profile and they have a V-taper aesthetic, having strong glutes, not crazy or anything, like not a BBL size or anything, but like having a strong ass is going to be good for your overall physique, and it's going to make you actually look a little bit slimmer from the side. Okay, so again, another Baki example here, but you get the point, right? So abs, like we talked about, huge for the V-taper, right? And how I was mentioning the triceps, very good for the side profile and all that, and you can see the upper back again, right? Very good, 3D. But remember how I was talking about the upper back and how it makes you look more 3D? So the same is kind of true for your leg muscles. The glute is kind of like your upper back muscle. You can kind of see here, this is actually a perfect kind of representation. The ass makes, like, it sticks out, right? So it makes your torso look thinner by comparison, right? Because it's a kind of a contrast here. That's why you want to train your glutes, mainly just for the side profile. So if we go down here, you know, obviously your ass isn't really doing anything for the aesthetic here, right? But for the side profile, 100%. Now, just to add to that, you don't necessarily have to be doing glute kickbacks. You know, Romanian deadlifts and proper squat depth are going to be really good, and they should handle most of that without you having to think about it. Okay, this exercise right here is perfect for erectors, glutes, and your hamstring. So overall, like, this is just like a solid, good compound kind of lift. You have to be doing these just for lower back health when you're older, especially, but do this. Okay, if you're not doing these, you need to be doing these, because that's going to give you upper back thickness, or your erector spine specifically, and it's going to develop your glutes and your hamstrings, which for most guys is going to be very weak. A lot of guys have underdeveloped glutes glutes, hammies, and all of that. So do variations of this exercise, and you can also do this weighted. All right, and then also what I'm gonna add is probably rear delts and the upper traps. These have to get bigger. Okay, now why do rear delts and upper traps have to get bigger? All right, so why am I putting rear delts here? Again, rear delts contributes to the side profile. Okay, this is huge for the 3D aesthetic. It won't make you look bigger from the front. The back, again, it's gonna help to the overall 3D look and make you look a little bit wider. But the thing is, it's more for the side profile. Again, here, you know, this is how you want it, right? This is the developed rear delt here. Okay, and then why did I also put traps? Now this is gonna be, again, one of the more controversial takes. You don't want to overdevelop traps, because if you do, you'll end up looking something like this. Now this is all well and good for the, you know, back profile, right? Now, the issue is with this, if you overtrain your lats like this fella here, obviously this is like, you know, fake and enhanced, but you get the idea. Like if you overdeveloped your traps, it would actually kind of take away from the vtaper, versus if you had smaller looking traps. Let's look here, right? You can see these aren't super large, and this is a great comparison because look, check this out. Big traps actually will take away from the vtaper. So you want to train your lats, obviously, but if you train them too much, you're actually going to take away from the overall aesthetic. But you can see here, right, your upper traps, this is really good because this is going to give you that sort of Dorito shape at the top, right? But for your upper half of your body, or your upper half of your back, right? So train your upper traps, but don't overdevelop them. Kind of like the same philosophy with your obliques. Okay, these last two muscles are going to be the most priority, and everything else is in service to them. Okay, so your side delts are what make you look bigger from the front and the back. Okay, it's not your front delts, it's not your rear delts, but your side delts. Most guys end up training their shoulders for months and still look like shit because they don't have wide shoulders, and that's because they're doing no lateral, you know, movements that train their side delts, and they need to be doing way more. Okay, lateral raises, cable lateral raises, you know, Arnold press, these are all really good staples that you need to have in your week, and they shouldn't be an afterthought. And finally, arguably the most important muscle is going to be your lats. Okay, it's not even close. This is where your V comes from. Wide lats create the illusion of a smaller waist without your waist actually changing, but you know, it's an optical illusion. You build the muscle up, right? That's what gets the cobra spread. So the back width that makes a fitted shirt sits completely different on you, and it's the most undertrained muscle on this list because you can't even really see it while you're training, you know. So what you got to do is pull-ups, chin-ups, barbell rows, lat pull downs, all that. Get very strong at these, and if you're not hitting lats, I would say at least twice a week, you're leaving a lot of growth on the table because it's the most important visual muscle. And next video, I'm going to be breaking down exactly what a full training week will look like built around this list. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys the actual split, the actual days, and no guessing. So subscribe, and I will see you guys there.